Hey everyone, it's MHW. Over the past couple weeks, I have started getting back into Monster Hunter World Iceborne, and I had a previously leveled up account on Xbox, but I switched over to PC since then, so I'm ranking up from scratch. And when I quit on Xbox, I had done the whole game as a Charge Blade main, and I was starting to get a little bit bored of the super amped Elemental Discharge playstyle, or even the Savage Axe playstyle, where it mostly revolves around guard pointing to find your openings. And now that I've started playing again, I've found a way to play that has been really refreshing. And surprisingly enough, it's as simple as not caring whether my shield is charged and not really caring about doing elemental discharges either. And that might sound pretty simple, and it might sound like even a downgrade, but I want to take a minute here in this video to explain why that's important and how it's helped me. So the first thing that I want to take a look at is the SAED, or Super Amped Elemental Discharge gameplay. This is what we had before Iceborne, and this is how I leveled up in the main game before Iceborne came out. But the reason why that got a little bit stale after clearing through the game is that you just do the same thing every time. So you can see this is the move. You do the big overhead swing and release all the files and do a ton of damage, and it was fun. And in the base game, it was pretty overpowered, which sort of made it even more fun because you could do so well with it. But after playing that again and again and again, it gets so repetitive of just even doing the same action on every single monster. Like, here you go again, you do it, and then when it's over, the only thing you think about is getting your files back, retreating back, and just doing another SAED. And I guess the reason why I don't really like this type of gameplay after a while, I mean, it's fun at first, is that it feels like there's no creativity. I mean, one of the things I really like about Monster Hunter is that when you get a really clean hunt, sometimes it can feel so picturesque when you're never getting hit and all your attacks are landing and you're hitting flinches at the perfect times. But if you're just spamming one ability over and over, it's just not as fun. And the SAED gameplay style is still around today. It still works, but when I got Iceborne, this isn't really something I was interested in, and it isn't really something I'm interested in now. So when Iceborne did come out, I think we all probably saw this video that got every Charge Blade main excited, where you see for the first time this Savage Axe. So it was finally something that looked like it was going to mix up the SAED spam gameplay style, where you could just sort of swing with this enormous Savage Axe that you power up by just hitting the left trigger L2 when you're about to do an amp discharge. And it looked incredible, but the unfortunate thing about it is that when you actually started to play the game, and I guess as the meta sort of evolved, what it turned into was this sort of gameplay right here, where you basically look for opportunities to do amp discharges. So you get your Savage Axe going, you charge your files up, but instead of doing SAEDs, you just try and find every opportunity to just spam amped elemental discharges, so it only uses one file. And the thing about this is that it's kind of like SAED spam with extra steps, because you just have to charge an axe before you do it again. But it's the same kind of gameplay, right? Like right here, you just get a guard point and you spam SAED. And the reason why I don't like this, and I didn't mention this when I talked about SAED, but it's still true there, is that a lot of times when you end up doing these huge attacks with a big wind-up, it can feel satisfying, especially if you hit a nice flinch, but a lot of times you end up just trading hits. It's not as fun because you're sort of just like knowing you're going to get hit. You're just like playing a numbers game of whittling the monster down and using your materials. And I think it also isn't as fun because it's not as conducive to like clearing new content. So even as Iceborne releases new content now, if you just play this style where you rely on mantles, you rely on trading hits, you can get off a big SAED or an amped elemental discharge. It's honestly just not as good, let alone, being stale and repetitive. So where does that leave us? Well, the truth that I've realized about Savage Axe mode is that it absolutely does do a ton of damage, any attack that you do with it while in Axe mode. And I didn't realize this at first, but you actually don't even need your shield charge to use it. And one of the main inconveniences of Charge Blade that sort of wears you down over time is that you constantly have to use your files to recharge your shield. And this is especially annoying when you're playing with Savage Axe, because that instantly cancels out your Savage Axe because you run out of files. and then not only do you have to recharge all your files to charge your shield again, then you have to get them all the way back up and use another like discharge animation to re-enter Savage Axe mode. But as you can see here, I don't have my shield charged, but I'm still in Savage Axe mode. And the truth about shield, having a charged shield, is that it helps with your defenses. It gives you a little bit more guard, and it does increase the damage of your files a little bit. But that's the only benefit. If you're only doing Savage Axe attacks and amped elemental discharge, there isn't really any other benefits. So while it makes sense to have it if you could, like if it was just a switch to have on, absolutely, but I actually don't think it's worth wasting in a hunt, you know, a whole animation of charging up your shield if you don't have to. And for me personally, that really alleviated a lot of the annoyance of feeling like I had to have it charge all the time, because like I said, it really doesn't do, you know, that much for your damage. The other thing I want to talk about is when I play Savage Axe now, the fact that I don't always feel like I have to be setting up an amped elemental discharge feels great, because what I can do is just focus on doing the normal axe attacks, and that's what's most satisfying. Maybe it's because I was a greatsword main in the previous Monster Hunter games, but just having a big stick that I can just swing back and forth without having to worrying about being the perfect setup, or in Monster Hunter World with greatsword, like the perfect charge setup and positioning, but just being able to swing it on like a Rathalos here, for example, feels great. And the damage is still really good. So I guess my main point through all of this is, if you're looking for a way to spice up the gameplay a little bit for Charge Blade, then absolutely give this Savage Axe playstyle a go, where you just sort of, you know, use the triangle circle or the YB combo on Xbox to just swing it around in Savage Axe mode and not worry about anything else. But that being said, I do want to say, like, if you're playing the game now as someone who charges the shield all the time and you're still enjoying it, don't let me stop you. But I hope you guys enjoy this, and that's all. See ya.